Good morning. Welcome to Walking Boxing. It is Sunday, April 27th, 2025, and I've just actually dropped Neil off. I'm just going on another walk by myself, a little bit like yesterday. A little bit different today though, because just couldn't get the video done this morning. What's going on? Still a lot of people around at the moment, and running into dogs, running into people wanting to chat, and I'm just going to go a little bit of the back way. I think I made the mistake of going down Honor Avenue, which is where I've been talking about the last sort of week or so with all the people down there. I thought it might be a lot quieter down there, but just people everywhere. There's no leaves left on the trees, by the way, and it's been wet and cold and raining, but there's still heaps of people down there, and I was just running into people. I just couldn't get the video done, so I'm going to go a back way and see if I can actually talk about the fight this morning, which we obviously all watched. I'm assuming we all watched anyway. I actually saw there was a stream on YouTube, and it was really good. That I was sort of looking for different vision and highlights and that sort of stuff. I did watch the fight, but not the undercard. But there was, I was just sort of watching YouTube to see whether there was any watch-alongs or all that sort of stuff going on. And I probably should have done one myself, but I didn't even think about it. But they had one of the main mob that do the fights, the broadcasting. They actually had a live stream of the commentators, and it was really well done. So it's the actual fight. You're in the venue, but it's just the cameras on the commentators, not on the ring. I thought it's a really good idea. So everyone that didn't want to really pay for it, or they wanted a proper watch along, well, you're going to get a watch along because you're listening to the actual commentators commentate the fight, and you see all the emotions and them jumping around, and it was really interesting. So I had that sort of going on the side while I was watching the main fight. A little bit out of sync though, so I had to stop it a little bit of the way through. But I think it's a really good concept actually, and one a lot of maybe other broadcasters should do as well. Is just put the cameras on the commentators and let them do their thing, and those people that don't want to buy the fight can at least stay up to date and have the commentary of the fight. But anyway, we'll get on to the fight itself in a second. We'll go through first what happened on this day. And where was it? I had it up before. First of all, in 1980, the great Alexis Arguello defended his WBC 130-pound title with a decision win over Rolando Navarrete. Very good fighter he was as well, Navarrete. That fight took place in San Juan, Puerto Rico. So, 1980. That was in 2013, I will say. It was another very good middleweight champion, Sergio Martinez. He defeated the Brit Martin Murray on points to defend his WBC middleweight title. That fight took place in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Also in 2013, in Brooklyn, New York, Danny Garcia beat Zab Judah on points to defend his WBC 140-pound titles. And he was actually a bit underrated, I thought, Danny Garcia. I think we sort of look at him more as what's happened to him in later years, some of his defeats. But as a 140-pounder, and even 147, very good fighter, and probably exceeded the expectations of him. I know he had some early wins over Amir Khan, Eric Morales, and a few of the others, but I always thought he was just a solid champion. But he's had some good fights and some good wins, and Zab Judah was probably the opposite for me. Before he fought Costa Tszyu, I thought this guy could be maybe what Floyd Mayweather ended up actually becoming, just a really dominant champion and pound for pound number one. And he never really measured up, did he? He lost this fight obviously to Garcia, he lost to Cotto, he lost to Mayweather, he lost a few others, and never really became that fighter we thought that he might be. But we can't all be superstars, can we? And he ended up having a good career. I think he ended up winning world titles after this fight anyway, so I'm sure he had a good career anyway, didn't he? Did Zab Judah. And a really nice guy too. I've met him a couple of times in Vegas, always up for a chat and a photo and all the rest of it. And also on this day, Rocky Marciano, yes, the great heavyweight champion, retired on this day in 1956. Now, I've been accused of maybe laying the boots into Rocky Marciano in the past. I've just never been. I mean, I'm a fan of him in general. It's Rocky Marciano. I mean, he is a great champion. I suppose I've always just probably got my back up a little bit when people talk about where he ranks in the heavyweight greats, and I've just never had him anywhere near the top 10, and which has probably annoyed a few people. But the thing is, what most people go back to, and again, I'm not going to use this episode to bash Rocky because I cop it enough anyway, but the thing is, what always irritates me when people talk about Rocky is that he was 49-0. Well, that means nothing to me. Nothing. Records mean nothing. It's who you beat and when you beat them and what are the stakes. That's what defines a great fighter, not just simply the fact that you're 49-0. That was my argument. Now, I'm not arguing that he's not a great fighter and a great champion and a great heavyweight. I'm not arguing that. And great for the sport. He's an icon. I'm just saying, when you're ranking fighters, all-time greats or even current pound-for-pound guys, don't go by the records. That's all I'm saying, because I reckon there's plenty of great heavyweights that I would put above Rocky Marciano, who probably lost 4, 5, even 6 fights. And I think they're better fighters than Rocky. But it always comes back to, well, he was 49-0. So that's my argument. I love Rocky. Who doesn't? But you've got to look at it for what it is. And the fact that you're 49-0 to me means nothing, especially when there wasn't one really significant win over a fighter in their prime. Joe Louis, Ezzard Charles, Jersey Joe Walcott were nowhere near the primes when he fought them. And here I am saying I'm not going to get into a bashing Rocky episode. Here I am bashing Rocky. I'm sorry for all the Rocky Marciano fans out there. I do love Rocky. I'm just stating my case. Anyway, all right, on to today's fights. A really, really good fight in England. The undercard, I said I didn't watch the undercard itself, but I'll quickly go through the results. First of all, the trilogy. Anthony Yarde defeated Lyndon Arthur by a 12-round decision. The scores 115-113, 116-112, and 116-112. Yarde moved to 27-3, 24 knockouts. Lyndon Arthur drops to 24-3 with 16 knockouts. Also on the undercard, this was a bit of an upset, I think. Aaron McKenna with a 12-round decision over Liam Smith, former world champion. That one really surprised me. I thought McKenna's a really good young prospect, but I didn't think he had enough to beat Liam Smith. Maybe that says a little bit more about Liam Smith, about where he's at in his career. Maybe it might be time to hang up the gloves. The judges' scores 119-108, 117-109, and 118-108. That was for that fight. And then the other one was Chris Billam-Smith. He was the sort of significant fight, I suppose, on the card. He moved to 21-2 with 13 knockouts with a tough 12-round decision over Brandon Glanton, who loves to come and fight, doesn't he, Brandon Glanton? He dropped to 20-3 with 13 knockouts. The official scores, 116-113, 116-112, and 116-112 again. So that was the undercard, excuse me. On to the main event. And look, I haven't had a chance to read all the comments and that. Obviously, I've just pretty much walked out the door after the fight. I saw the in-ring interviews and a little bit of what Eddie Hearn had to say as well. And look, I thought it was a good fight. A good scrap, a good fight, between two fighters who, in my opinion, aren't necessarily at the top echelon of the elite fighters of today. But that didn't matter. It wasn't necessarily about that. It was more of an event rather than a significant fight in the scheme of things. There was no world titles on the line. There was nothing really on the line except for probably legacy, I suppose, and the names. It was one of those, I think, just almost like when Danny Green fought Anthony Mundine here in Australia. No world titles on the line. That was a little bit... The first one was obviously a big fight for different reasons. Both world ranked, both fought for world titles. Probably the second one is the one I'm probably thinking about. Well, it's just put on... It was pretty much just put on for the fans and the money. That's what it was put on for. It had no significance whatsoever. But hey, they made a shitload of money. They packed out the joint, and it was an okay scrap. Today's fight was a little bit the same. Had no relevance really in the scheme of things, or did it? I suppose maybe they put themselves in lines for big fights, who knows? But I just thought it was a fight for the fans and a fight for the money and a fight for the drama and everything around the event. And it was, yes, we all know the background of the fathers, and these two have pretty much been born into the feud, into the rivalry. and both did a great job, sort of living up to that. And as I said, while I don't think it was a fight for the ages as far as skill-wise and two elite fighters, this wasn't, Hagler Leonard or Mayweather Pacquiao. I mean, this was just a good fight between two, let's just say, sort of B minus type of fighters. And I don't want to denigrate the fighters because they put on a great show, but you got to call it for what it is. And look, I thought for the fight itself, I thought Conor Benn started really, really well. I thought he won probably the first, maybe 3 rounds, at least 2 of the first 3, if not all 3. But I must admit, watching those first few rounds, I thought that just looking at the body language of both guys, I just thought Chris Eubank Jr., you could just sort of see that he was just using the first 3 rounds to see what Conor Benn had. And that's why it was a 12-round fight. And a 12-round fight, you don't go hard early. You have a good look at your opponent, which is what he did. And as the old adage says, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I just thought that that's the mindset that Chris Eubank went in with. On the other hand, I thought that Conor Benn went the other way and was just like, I'm just going to take this guy out, whether it's 12 rounds or not. And I thought he expended a lot of energy early. He went after Chris Eubank. But I was really impressed from what I saw with Chris early, when he boxed smart. He gave away those rounds, but again, he knew it was a 12-round fight. So he just had a good look at Conor. And I don't know what you guys thought, but I just thought that he looked really relaxed in there. He looked quite comfortable. He just looked composed, and just knew after those first 3 rounds, I think just the look on his face to me told me that he was pretty happy with the way things were proceeding, and he was pretty confident he'd get the job done over Conor Benn. And I thought Conor Benn just fought on pure emotion and just no real game plan in there. It's like, I'm just going to steamroll this guy. And in a 12-round fight, you can't fight that way. You just can't do it. You've got to be calculated, and you've got to get into the groove of the fight. You've got to set your traps. You've got to try and get your momentum going, your timing, range, all that sort of stuff. You've got to sort of let that sort of flow. But Conor Benn was just like, right, the bell's rung. Here we go. I'm just going to come after you. And I just thought, and we're sort of hoping to some extent he might come in with a little bit better game plan, but this is Conor Benn we're talking about. The bloodline, even with his dad Nigel, it was never really about technique and style and boxing IQ, was it? It was just, let's go, let's get it on. Nigel fought exactly the same way, and you could sort of see that. I just thought as the rounds went on after the 3rd round, you could sort of see Chris Eubank just start to up the pace. He started to up the tempo, and a lot of the times when Conor was just, taking that little bit of a spell, you'd see Chris Eubank pick it up like good fighters do. And I just thought as the rounds went on, he started to pile up the rounds. And I thought, it got to about 8 or 9 rounds in. I thought that by that stage, Chris Eubank was well and truly back in the fight. He was probably leading the fight at that stage. And I just thought he was just starting to really ramp it up and make Conor Benn pay and for a lot of his mistakes. And there was quite a few from Conor Benn. There's no, hey, let's just set it up with a jab and get our way inside and then maybe work the body, come over the top, let's do this and do it. No, it's just one gear and it's in overdrive the whole time. And that was actually to his detriment, because Chris Eubank went through the gears, he went up and down, picked his time to go after Conor Benn, picked his time to rest, picked his time to sort of move away. And I just thought he fought a really smart fight. And I'm not saying that Chris Eubank Jr. is by any means, as I said before, like a top echelon type of fighter, but he's a hell of a lot smarter than Conor Benn. And I think that's really what it came to down in the end. Was a lot of it was just boxing IQ, especially in the later rounds when both guys, you could see they were really exhausted, doing it tough. I just thought Chris Eubank's composure and ability just to ride the punches and really pick his times in a 3-minute round fight. He was cruising along and just fighting the right fight, if that makes sense. Where Conor Benn, it was just like, all right, well, I'm just going to keep throwing bombs until one of us drops. And it just wasn't a very smart game plan, in my opinion. And this really came to a head after the 10th round, I thought, when I had it 6-4 in favour of Chris Eubank Jr. after the 10th, but a lot of the commentators and experts online and everything a lot of them were saying the fight was even at 5-5. And it was really just going to come down to, first of all, Would Eubank's size difference come into it, his experience come into it, or would the weight issue really come to a head as well, and Conor Benn would come home a little bit stronger? Well, I thought Chris Eubank won the last 2 rounds clearly. I just don't think Conor Benn fought a smart fight in those last 2 rounds with a fight there for up for grabs. Look, he was exhausted, by the way, so we can't be too hard on him. But just putting the head down and just winging away, it just really played into the hands of Chris Eubank Jr., who remained composed, picked his shots, and I thought won the last 2 rounds clearly. To the point, I think in the last minute of the fight, he actually had Conor Benn sort of going, probably more by fatigue more than anything. But I thought he did more than enough. Now, was it a great fight? It was a very good fight, if you ask me. Again, I'll say I don't think it was a fight for the ages, as far as, you know, look at these 2 warriors just sort of going for it, these 2 elite guys. I think it was just 2, again, well-matched guys, 2 well-matched fighters who just eked out every single thing they could out of their bodies and put on a great show for the fans. And again, the right man won. So I'm not sure how you saw it. But yeah, it was a good, entertaining fight. As for after the fight, I thought both guys spoke really well. It wasn't that great to see, by the way, that Chris Eubank Sr. actually made it to the fight. And I think that might have even really played a factor too in Chris Eubank Jr. maybe just finding something a bit extra as the fight went on. Because when, I'm sure he would have been feeling it with that weight cut later in the fight, maybe just that extra little spark he got from seeing his dad just sort of got him over the line. Maybe just reignited the flame of the rivalry or the family feud between the 2 parties, and who knows. But I thought it was fantastic, and even the way Chris Eubank Jr. spoke after the fight, I thought was really classy. Didn't say anything bad about Conor Benn, you know, and Conor Benn was the same. I think he was obviously disappointed. His dad Nigel was obviously very proud of him, but I just think in this case it was really exposed about the levels we always talk about in the sport. Now, Chris Eubank Jr. again is not by any means, in my opinion, right at the top level, but he's at a level, I think, a couple above Conor Benn, who was just, to me, just sort of exposed a little bit of just being a really tough, honest battler. That's sort of what I saw from Conor Benn. And again, his dad was a lot, well, very similar to that sort of style as well, but he just had something a little bit extra for me, did Nigel Benn. And obviously he won world titles, so he did, but I'm just not sure whether Conor Benn has got what it takes to replicate his dad from what I saw today. Probably his first fight against a really good fighter, a world-class fighter. I know he's had wins over Chris Algieri and a couple of others, but he was way past his peak. This is probably the first real test he's had. And even though he showed a ton of heart, he hung in there, fought a good fight, I just think his lack of pretty much everything was exposed. You know, I don't really like to, you know, be detrimental to a fighter who's just given his absolute all over 12 rounds. But again, you've got to call it the way it is. And I'm just not sure whether he's got the technique, the skill, and more importantly, the boxing IQ to really challenge for those titles. I mean, you look at the champions at the moment, I think Boots Ennis absolutely eats him for breakfast. I think Brian Norman would do a number on him as well. I even think Mario Barrios might actually beat him, and he's a very, very beatable champion. That's if he goes back to 147. If he decides to go to 154, well, mate, stand in line. And even if you do happen to get a shot at a Fundora, a Crawford, which obviously is probably not going to happen, but an Ortiz, a Murtazaliev, I mean, I just can't see him beating any of those guys. So, look, good luck to him going forward, but I think he's going to need it. Chris Eubank, on the other hand, I mean, from what I saw today, I still don't think he bothers Janabek or Adamez or Lara. That's if he makes 160 anyway. But even if he goes to 168, that probably seems the most sort of plausible thing for him at the moment, I think, is that he'll go to 168. He'll probably fight Ben again, obviously, later in the year. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see the May fight next year for Canelo being Chris Eubank Jr. Just makes sense. Now, I think he's just cannon fodder for Alvarez, but what a big fight it'd be, especially if they took it to England it'll be massive. Well, that has to be in Saudi, doesn't it? So either way, Saudi Arabia, it will be massive. So because what's Canelo's got, so he's got Scully, he's got Crawford, and then the May fight. So I think we're going to see Chris Eubank Jr. He's going to fight Ben again at the end of the year. I think he beats Ben again, and then we might see him in there with Canelo in May. But yeah, look, all things aside of what we thought of each fighter, what we thought. Everything. I just thought it was a great event. Put on 65,000 people there. These are the fights that make boxing great. They really do. And whether the fighters themselves are, you know, the Canelos or Mayweathers or Pacquiao's or De La Hoya's, doesn't really matter. It's what makes boxing great. We've all been talking about this for a while, about how great boxing is at the moment. And even though this wasn't a fight of big, like a great magnitude, in world boxing I'm talking about. As far as English boxing and just a boxing event in itself, I thought it was fantastic and really enjoyed it. Really, really good, entertaining fight. And again, the right fighter won. So guys, give me your thoughts down below. I'm sure you've got differing opinions and your own thoughts on the event, on the fights, how either one of them would go against world champions. Let me know. And more importantly, who wins the rematch later in the year? Which is what we're all going to be talking about after this one, aren't we? So guys, have a great Sunday. We'll catch you tomorrow.